to work with the government to abandon principles. But he didn't do that, and he kept on, and then at the tail end of it, he was vindicated. So the example tells us that, you know, we could have a huge cloud. The situation could be very stormy. We may even think that an earthquake is going to come, you know, and I'm using these images. But when you remain true to your convictions and principles and commitment, you will succeed. And so, although this turn of event was unexpected, 66, he will have hoped to age with grace, with his graceful wife, whose name is Grace, Mrs. Iyayi, but he succeeded. It's a success by all standards, and you know, his children will be proud of him as a father, the same way all of us are proud of him as a comrade.
You know, you talk about that streak running through. You mentioned Mandela, even though, yeah, I think we might as well just go there now since we're running out of time. Something definitely stands great men out. I mean, there is no gainsaying that Mandela is a great man, or now was a great man, and his values, you know, will continue to endure. How do people, I think a lot of people want to know, how do people become great? Well,
I think that it's a writer, I don't know whether it's Shakespeare, who said that some people are born with greatness, some people have greatness bestowed on them, and some people achieve greatness in their lifetime. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the person said that. But, you know, my take is that you're not born with greatness.
You don't believe that people are born with it?
No. You're not born with greatness because it's not in your gene. It's not. There's several princes that become rogues, you know, in spite of the fact that they could lay claim to blue blood. Criminals. So, and in any case, power and greatness are not one and the same thing. Study the history of kings. They were villain kings, they were good kings. You achieve greatness by work, by beliefs, by your commitment. And I'm not talking about theater of struggle now, or fighting for the people. The Mandela example that you gave, yes, he was, he had a kind of chiefly pedigree, I would say royal, you know. But he was a lawyer. He could have chosen the path of accommodation within the system, assimilation and all that. It was an elite. He with Oliver Tambo were the first two black lawyers to open a law firm in Johannesburg. So he could have chosen that path. They were elite, right? But he decided that the path of struggle, and he later said that the struggle was his life, was the path that he had to choose. It was not easy. You know, he was named the Black Pimpernel at the stage, in disguising, running all over the place, you know, living like a gypsy. It wasn't easy. Going to prison is not easy, you know. For a lawyer to be breaking stones, you know, on Robben Island, it's not easy.
He was actually schooled.
Yes, he was breaking stones, and because of all that, you know, he also had infection, tuberculosis in prison, and you know, water had to be drained out of his chest. It wasn't easy, but you know, the more he looked at the people, the more he knew that there was no quitting, and that he was sold on the idea of helping to liberate his people. And at every stage, he will tell you that, look, I didn't do this alone. There were others. He was even recruited in the ANC by Walter Sisulu, who was older than him, not as educated as him, though, you know, and he deferred to the leadership of his organization. So he started in his organization. He helped, you know, strengthen that organization. He formed the Spear of the Nation, Koto, with Sizwe at the stage. And at the tail end, he also realized that, look, we have to have a negotiated settlement. Before, we thought that we could have the land, we could have everything, but hey, the descendants of the Boers and Afrikaners are not going to go anywhere. That's why in all the intervention of the Western world, they are emphasizing peace. They only played because they don't want South Africa post Mandela to be, you know, in a state of conflagration. But I usually tell them that the first condition for peace and reconciliation is justice. Give justice to the person you want to reconcile to, rather than telling him that it is good to be peaceful right? So, but I'm telling you that there was an evolution, and he saw that evolution. The ANC was presenting charters with Chief Albert Lutulu before presenting charter, who was a former president, presenting charter and petitions and all that. And these guys were just escalating the oppression, with segregationist laws and so on and so forth, with full-blown apartheid. And so they needed to react to that. And at the stage they said, look, I believe in non-violence before, as espoused by Mahatma Gandhi, but now I think that we needed violence. But even at that, and I've said this here before when we were discussing Maine, he didn't feel that the way to go when you wanted to visit violence on the state would be to be killing people. No, they were targeting breaches, they were targeting structures, and so on and so forth. And so they worked together with the South African Communist Party, and at the tail end, very interesting, at the tail end, they felt that they needed to build a coalition. Congress of South African Trade Union, the Mass Democratic Movement, and all that. And they felt that that was how to go, to have a negotiated settlement. And so if you look at all these and contemplate what they needed to do, it wasn't that they were bent on achieving greatness. Greatness came as a logical consequence of their work and commitment. It wasn't that, it's a different thing.
So it wasn't the aim.
It wasn't an aim. It wasn't that. Who tells you that it's easy to be a martyr? Except those who are the loony elements that are strapping bombs to themselves and killing themselves. And then, we will remember them anyway.
The question Mark may ask is so deep, very, very deep, because you look at it, and I like the way you just analyzed it to even disagree with Shakespeare when he said some were actually born great. So say, no, actually, no one is actually, born that way. You actually work towards it. And I'm trying to also pick what you said about late Professor Iyayi relinquishing after his first tenure that, look, I don't think I want to go any further, and this is it. And to also tie that with what Mandela also did, to the extent that he warned everyone not to call him while he was leaving office, that don't worry, should there be any need, I'll be the one to call you people, but for now, just let me take the back seat. So now we're getting to see some similarities in some of these great people. Now, and we say it wasn't actually deliberate. Perhaps there must be something that drives them to say this is the way to go. Some will call it selflessness, but beyond that, what do you see?
Sacrifice, selflessness, service, then leading to greatness.
Service?
Yes, service.
Let's talk more on
then
service.
Leading to greatness. So when you're talking about service, it's not about occupying the seat of government. Look, if you look at the South African struggle, it was at a stage a hopeless struggle, really, because it's different from the swift decolonization project in Nigeria. Look, these people settled on this land, and now it's the gain of South Africa now. Nigerians go to South Africa and say, wow, this country is developed. The way people settled there, they weren't exploiting the resources of South Africa to develop their home country. Rather, they felt that this is our own, and they started developing that society. However, they felt that they should draw a line. You people stay in the rural area, blacks, don't come to the cities. Because this city, we've made it for ourselves, not for you folks. Okay? And so, it wasn't a matter of lowering the Union Jack and hoisting the green, white, green flag. They had nowhere to go. And so they dug in. And so they weren't going to allow this kind of thing to happen. The international public opinion, especially by those who are praising Mandela now from Western, was not in favor of ANC. ANC was castigated as a terrorist organization for espousing violence. Thatcher said, unless Mandela renounced terrorism, there shouldn't be any discussion. That's Margaret Thatcher. And that resonated throughout the Western world. Okay, so it wasn't a tea party. They were going all over Africa, going to guerrilla camp in Algeria, coming to Ghana, and so on and so forth. Revolutionaries were the only friends they had. The Cubans, the Soviets. Those were the only friends they had. But by grit, determination, perseverance and consistency. They weathered the storm and they forced the conscience of the world to embrace their ideal.
Even though initially that wasn't what they set out to do. I mean, they finally forced. What do you think really got to the conscience of the world, like you rightly put it?
You know,
was it the fact that he had spent 27 years in jail?
No. Even if you are killed, that will not prick the conscience of the world. International detention and diplomacy and class relations and all that, global class relations, they're not issues that people moralize about. They can sacrifice anybody. It's not the length of detention. No.
So what?
First, I think that on the international scene, there was a change. The pretext of the Western world to label revolutionaries and African liberation fighters communists was no longer there. The Cold War.
When the Cold War ended.
You know. And over time, the ANC built friendship all over the world. The Africans were doing their own bit. The African countries that had become liberated. And that's why we had the frontline states. So the frontline kept shifting. Angola, became independent. Mozambique, and so on and so forth. So you had an isolated South Africa, an apartheid regime there. And so the more African countries that came into the column of independent country, the more they felt that they should be committed to the idea of liberating South Africa. Even reggae musicians were singing, but all of them talking about Mandela and so on. And I think that many will still sing for him now that it's late. Because his life is imperishable, it's eternal. The example that he brought to us. And so all these, came together. And within South Africa, the apartheid regime came to an understanding that apartheid was not sustainable. There was an international isolation. Increasingly the world, even though they were saying renounce violence and all that, nobody was going to listen to that. And so this forced the hands of the apartheid regime. So that at a critical moment, when, this is very interesting, I can draw a parallel between the Nigerian state and the apartheid regime. What do I mean? Sometimes you wonder whether the Nigerian state is capable of making tactical compromises in order to preserve its strategic goals. For example, if a minister is accused of corruption, so why stick to him? Why not even pretend that you are fighting corruption? In South Africa, when the African National Party, they call it National Party or so, realize that they needed to do something. P.W. Botha was the president. His party rebelled against him. I said, you don't want to discuss with these people. You had better start discussing with them. Otherwise, you will destroy everything that there will be nothing to negotiate for. We've overrun. And so the clerk came. So the clerk wasn't just coming as a pacifist, he was part and parcel of the apartheid regime. But all these had occurred, and the apartheid regime was forced to accept the inevitability of making peace with the ANC. And so they went ahead and all that. At the time, they were doing everything to ensure that nothing will happen to Mandela. Yeah.
Why do you think it became the symbol of the struggle?
Well, Nelson Mandela was a very gifted person. He was educated, he was a lawyer. Watambo was also a lawyer. But all of them sacrificed. There were people who were even killed. Root First was killed. There were several persons that were killed. So, and he kept saying, I'm just a symbol. I'm a symbol. I'm part of a collective and all that. But why I think he became very successful in what he was doing was that I would say that fate has something to do with it. If while he was taken to prison, he had died, so what would have happened?
Looking at these two men you've talked about so far, one would ask the question, how do we translate, what lessons do we draw from these men? Because they faced challenges. When in the midst of the challenges, they stood their ground. So what can the younger generation of leaders coming up now, what can they draw from these men? And how should they go about it?
Well, I think that what the younger generations, the eternal lessons we need to learn from these two heroes is that, look, this society is our society. We got to clean up the society. Nobody's going to come and do it for us. Nelson Mandela, at a stage, was a roving militant, a roving revolutionary across the African continent. But at a point, the leadership decided that, look, they needed to go to South Africa to offer leadership to the people. They just stay outside in exile and generating press statements and giving orders, sanctioning matches, and without people providing it. If they would be arrested, they knew. They prepared for any eventuality, but they resolved that some of them will have to go inside to provide leadership for the people. And so the point is that now that we're discussing our country and what is going on in South Africa, I think that Nigerians, old and young, need to learn a lesson that we just have one lifetime. We have one lifetime. Look, I've said it before. I guess that all of us will be very sad at the twilight of our life. If we had the grace to die peacefully, if we were to look back at our country and say that it's as bad as it is now, or it's only made a marginal improvement, we'll be sad. Why? Because if you believe in the life hereafter, you'll be wondering, how can you rub shoulders with Germans when you go to heaven, or Americans, or people who have, improved on their society?
Because the giver of that same brain will ask you how well you used
Exactly.
yours. Well, I'd like to thank you so very much, Gt. Ogunye, a legal practitioner looking at the times of two great personalities, Professor Festus Iyayi and Madiba Nelson Mandela. So as Dele takes a moment, and we will return shortly. Join us again.